All right, everybody, welcome to the Facts Project. My name is James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and today I have an extremely special guest today, and this is a long time coming. Sebastian Jones, Stranger Comics. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Are you kidding me? Thanks for having me. I appreciate the love and support, man. Been following your page for a
Absolutely.
while. It's epic. You know, I'm
And,
here.
yo, I'll get right to it.
Oh shit. Okay.
So 2017,
Okay.
New York Comic Con
Mm,
was the first time I got to meet you as a customer.
right.
As you basically go through your whole channel of introducing the book to about thousands of people that show up there within those 4 days, exchanging hands, talking with one another, everybody basically like learning the stories. And at this time, I got I got curious about Untamed for the first time.
Mm.
So not only did I get to talk to you, I did my roundabout, and I also got a chance to talk to Daryl,
Oh
uh,
shit. Okay. Yeah.
Daryl May as well. So
Yeah.
so this started a rabbit hole for me personally, which was wanting to get more entwined into the world of Stranger Comics, the world of Niobe,
Mm,
the world of Arathuni, the world of Dusu, the Untamed, and how it basically just like molded into this epic fantasy.
thank you. Yeah.
And more so because I'm a fan of indie comics,
Right.
it just brought out a difference of perspective.
Mm,
And I talk about it a lot, that we are not we as African Americans, we as being people of diversity are not monoliths to the stories that we tell.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when this was first brought to you, as far as like peeking into your mind,
Mm.
where did this come from?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, so the world, Niobe's world, I guess. So I'm a mixed dude that grew up in a very small white village, and my mom's from India. She's mixed too. Like I'm super melting pot dude. If you, you
Hmm.
know, if you probably can't tell by my confused
Same.
accent and yeah, my confused face. But really, it was a search, I guess, for my own culture and identity as as a young man, and being also really super immersed in a few different inspirations. Musically, it was um, like Coltrane, hip hop, um, Muddy Waters, James Brown, Otis Redding, Nina Simone. I was a savage for music,
Hmm.
and then cinematically, I was hardcore into at the time, of course, Spike Lee's movies to spaghetti westerns, Kurosawa, and I've been a comic kid, and I played a shitload of D&D and live action role playing. So I was like uber nerd,
Okay.
and immersed myself in fantasy. Yet I think I romanticized about creating a very culturally inclusive fantasy world where I was playing and being a dungeon master and shit, and to see myself reflected in those stories and in the right way I wanted. I was like, what the fuck is this drow and why are they evil? Why are all the dark skinned people evil? I was just really kind of cool on that.
Right.
And then um, and then Niobe kind of, I think, I romanticized about a character that could kind of reflect my own vulnerability and my own wrath and frustration and rage. And it felt like she was a manifestation of my own duality of spirit.
Hmm.
And I was either going to go down one path because I'm a very skinny, had a very bad temper when I was young. So
Okay.
it was like very extreme, big love and then big anger, I guess. And, I could see myself going down these two different paths. And so Niobe, the more I grew as a man, the world that I was creating was growing. I ran a record label for a lot of years and I was just developing these stories. And long story short, because I'm a rambler, is I think I wanted Niobe to, I wanted the world I was created. I wanted her to make the world I was creating a better place in the world of Asunder.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I grew, she grew with me. And then I sound like a probably obnoxious dickhead, but I was like, if that can happen, maybe Niobe can make our world a better place when you read the stories and fall in love with her and see yourself through her lens, whether you're white, you're black, you're mixed, just the concept of your own journey. Everyone's, there are certain layers, especially more and more for black folk and more for, for disenfranchised and women and all these various things. How do you connect with your ancestors? All these, layers and whatnot. But there is a commonality of a human theme of um, struggling with obligation and adventure and responsibility versus and doing the right thing. You know
Right. Now,
that
now,
that was the bigger thing. And then the stranger, just before I space it,
yeah.
the manifestation of the stranger in the Untamed is also a reflection of a man wanting to be better and how do you get a second chance and what do you do with the second chance in a finite window. So you
Mm-hmm.
have these to maybe the overall arching question, James, is I didn't want to I want to create a big Lord of the Ringsy world, sure, but the stories I wanted to tell was a reflection of the human spirit
Mm-hmm.
in that you could relate to on a human spirit, soulful kind of resonance. Not like, oh, we're off to save the princess and
Right.
these giant tropes. Yeah, I've got wars and dragons and gods and all that cool shit. But if this was a Western or this was a samurai feudal era or this was modern day, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's still I could still tell the same story and draw you in and go, ooh, feel that like the woo moment. And then you go, wait, fucking hell, I'm in a huge fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explore the world with Niobe.
Right. And from how you look at it, from the storyline itself, you almost want to take it to a societal level because the way that I basically what I've read from Niobe is that from birth, she's a question mark.
Yeah.
So like she's in search of something, she's in search of who she is, she's in
Mm-hmm.
search of her future, and then she finds puzzle pieces on the way.
Right.
So it's a formulation of a bigger picture.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that's so important for all of us. It's kind of like we're all piecing together. And I'm going to butcher this quote, and
Sure.
it's my favorite quote, but I'm going to butcher it. Is Malcolm X has a quote which is, "Don't be in such a hurry to condemn those who don't think like you do or act like you do today, because there once was a time you didn't think or act like you do now."
True.
And I'm sure I'm just paraphrasing it and ruining it, but just conceptually, it when I'm being judgmental, I can always try and go, whoa, that person is going through their moment right now in this space and time. And 10 years from now, they might look back and go, well, that was a mistake. I just
Yeah.
didn't, and the same for me too.
Mhm.
And I think if I can bring that to some of these characters that might have passionate linear perspectives in their journey, but
Right.
let them go, oh shit, I would, and open their eyes up a little bit on their journey too.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up Malcolm X because he he as a person is a metaphor for evolution,
Yes.
for how his mind progressed.
Yeah.
So
Ultimate.
so to see storylines built from that progression from the seed all the way to the blooming
Yeah.
is just is genius.
Thank
Now
you.
now the team that you have with Daryl May and
Right.
Peter Berting, how did this collaboration come together?
Okay. So Daryl is he used to come and play live action role playing with me. So I literally was this. So I'm a bit older than all the rest of the heads that I would play D&D. When I was the super young dude growing up,
Okay.
I got to America and I started running these live action role playing groups. And this crazy heavy metal wild dude came and he was so enthusiastic with the games.
Yeah.
This is like we're talking, I don't even know, like over 20 years ago.
Okay.
And he was a loan officer and he would come to play D&D. And I was like, whoa, this guy's, he ended up becoming an anthropology major.
Mhm.
So the world I was creating, I was like, yo, this dude is really not only smart, but he is a genius creator, and he is so giving of spirit,
Right.
or very rare, authentic person. Not no fluff, no bullshit, just um, very very heart on the sleeve kind of dude.
Ah,
Um, and so with that, it really became this thing of how do we nurture this, not only the spirit of Niobe, but also from a just from an anthropological standpoint. All right, bet. So if we're creating this town and it's in, you know, an African region of the world, why
right.
the fuck are these other kind of shows and things doing like, oh, they got metal armor on? Well, they're bake, you know,
Right.
and all that. And so we created like, you know, plants and trees and geology and geography and migration patterns and all sorts of, you know, wonderful things. So yeah, he really helped, um, you know, really structure some of the more earnest anthropological kind of foundations of the world making sense, even to the point of this, where I was always like, okay, orcs have to be green. Fuck, you know, I love Lord of the Rings movies, but fuck orcs being black. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And uh, so we created, and why are they angry? So Darrow's like, well, what if they have their frontal lobe is always being pushed down on this bone by the, so they're always in pain, and when you're
Uh-huh.
in pain and you're not sleeping, and sleeping leads to reactionary and being so, you know, you got checks and balances for physiology
Right.
in addition to the mythology of why are they green, because they're descendants of the jade god who was jealous of his blah blah blah, the mythos. You got the
Uh-huh.
mythos and you got the fact.
Right.
So that was Daryl, and then Peter Bergting was a funny story. So I have a friend of mine named Scoot. Um, have you ever seen the show *Halt and Catch Fire* or the last True Detective series?
I remember the last True Detective. Yes.
Okay, so one of the lead actors, he's um, not Mahershala or other white Stephen Dorff, but the other lead dude, the white dude who was, I think, the dad. I
Okay.
can't remember. So
Ah.
he's kind of like got a moustache, kind of pretty hick like.
Mhm.
He was also in like one of the superhero movies and Argo and 12 Years a Slave. But he was one of
That,
my old.
Colin Farrell?
No, his name's Scoot McNairy.
Ah,
You, he's one of those dudes you go, oh, that dude, I recognize him from tons of shit.
okay.
Yeah, you look up Scoot McNairy. So he and I used to be have the same. I used to do commercials and model back when I was younger and pretty,
Okay.
and um, so he fell in love with the Untamed stories. Like, I don't like fantasy and I don't know that shit. But this story, because I wrote the script,
Right.
we don't know what the fuck we were doing. So this script I'd written, and we're like, we're gonna make it. And I found this guy in Sweden called Peter Bergting,
Hmm.
and we pretended we were these giant Hollywood producers making this giant thing. We're like, yo, you got to do this comic. It's great. Blah blah blah. Um, and I was working at the time with these filmmakers called the Polish Brothers, who did these indie movies back in the days. Twin
Okay.
Falls, Idaho, Norfolk, very kind of like David Lynchian, Kubrickish kind of thing. And they saw me as a rough diamond and whatever the fuck. I was working with them. I don't even fuck that story. Um, anyway, I was working with them, and Peter was like, "Oh, you're working with these guys, okay?" I'm like, but that was kind of my bait and switch. We can work on this shit, but then you got
Right.
to do some shit on the Untamed. And then by the time Peter realized we were full of shit, he fell in love with the project, and he was like, "This shit is fucking great. A spaghetti western with or a Kurosawa movie, but with set in a fantasy world, but distilled into one town."
Mm.
And the he fell in love with the romance of the project, and that's how we met Peter. And it was bro, that was a struggle. I mean, it's always been a struggle, but that was a struggle too, because the original Untamed book, that's meant to be set in our kind of Morocco part of Asunder.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, yo, we've got to have more of a inclusionary cast, because the ultimate anti fuck the white savior kind of person.
Right.
Please, you know, make stranger a little bit more, you know, a bit more like me, a bit more like ambiguous. What the, you know, what is,
Mm-hmm.
and then have more black characters, more brown characters. We're in Morocco. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be like, oh, look at this little black girl. She, why does she, the classic alone, you know.
Right.
Um, so then when I was doing that, I started work heavily on Dusu and Niobe's own storyline to go, okay, I want to make sure we have nothing but black folks in this comic here.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure I also, like with Niobe, work with black artists and writers to also make sure they're not, you know, they're just knocking it out, you know.
Yeah. Now, how did Amanda Stembler get involved?
Amandla, yeah, Amandla is amazing, and Amandla and Ashley. Yeah, did you realize this, bro? Like, we didn't even realize when we did Niobe Shear's Life, it was like the first nationally distributed comic with a black female author, artist, and hero in the history of
Hmm.
comics. We were like, what? It was great. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, so I met Amandla. So I have these series of kids books I do called I Am. I Am
Yeah.
Mixed to celebrate all cultures. I Am Awesome for how to be brave, not give up. Adoption. I'm living two homes.
Hmm.
Kids with divorce. And I was at this event and I saw Amandla and I was like, oh, that's the kid from the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So I ran over there. I was like, hey, take a picture, you know, with the book. Okay, I'm going to tell you about Niobe. You got to be Niobe. You got to write with me. Da, da, da. And she's like, she thought I was, you know, her and mom thought I
Glad
was,
bag back.
yeah, I thought I was crazy,
Uh-huh.
which was true. And I said, I'm going to be doing a live reading right now for this kid's book. Come and listen.
Okay.
And they're like, okay. I didn't give them any option. So we go into this big auditorium. No one is there apart from one old black lady in the very back row. So like I'm telling like a seat of 300 people,
Right.
and I am reading to no one
Right.
apart from one lady and then a couple of people doing some arts and craft shit on the side. And Amanda and a mum stood at the front, and I started do a reading of this kid's book, and she's like, and she was cracking up, you know, because I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, felt like an idiot. And she's like, you're really funny. Okay, what's this Niobe book about? So I gave her the Untamed book,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, this is Niobe. You know, even though you're following this man's journey, it's really her ascension. It's her, the seed is planted for who she could become.
Right.
And she's like, I'm in. And
Wow.
we would meet for coffee and sushi and start developing the story. And to begin with, it's crazy, but to begin with, we were like, let's write this as a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a few sessions in, we were like, this is going to take forever. And we're both super crazy busy. I'm like, wait, I think my company's meant to be Stranger Comics. Maybe it should be a comic book, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, um, and then we saw about trying to find the right artist while we were developing the story.
Right.
And we went to a Black Comics Arts Festival in San Francisco, the first one that was John Jennings was putting on, and we met Ashley there, and Amanda just fell in love with her art.
Mm.
And I was used to more kind of like gritty painting, heavy, you know, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And Ashley, her art was so beautiful and light
Mm-hmm.
and whimsy, as it was, you know, whimsical kind of attitude, nature to it, and it had a little bit more anime manga kind of influence as well,
Really?
which I feel like
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, that's going to speak to Amanda's age group and young girls a
Mm-hmm.
lot more than more gritty painting. So, you know, um, she did a test and it was like, oh yeah, this lady is incredible, and then we started developing Niobe, and it all came out around the same time.
Now, did you formulate in the beginning that the lead would be female?
Yeah, yeah. Always Niobe was going to be the face of the franchise. Always. Yeah. It just I don't I don't know what it is. I okay. All right. A lot of people get offended by this,
Mm.
but when I was a kid, I I was a always questioning. And um, okay, I'll be very honest. So when I was at school, I'd have to go to church every day.
Hmm.
Me as a dude that was not from a religious background couldn't understand why, if there was a Messiah character and there was an overall creator of a universe, why was it male if
Right.
women give birth? And so I felt that narrative just as a young kind of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on kind of person.
Hmm.
And I was just questioning everything, and I was thrown out of. I was that kid at school.
Right.
My teachers did not like me.
I don't
And
see why that wouldn't be a viable question. You know,
right, right, but
if you're seeing something with your own eyes, a woman that gives birth as someone who brings life into this world within the physical form,
yeah,
what makes you so different to question entities that do the
right,
same thing?
right. That 100%. I just think there's a lot of folks that are very obviously extremely sensitive because their faith and religion is wrapped up in their identity
It's true.
and sense of self and protection.
Hmm.
And the moment you start like tugging on that blanket, then they become vulnerable because they're naked,
Right.
for questioning and like, no, let me stick even more blankets on. Fuck that. Um, so yeah, so from a very young age, I was like, if the cradle of civilization is Africa and women give birth and give and create life, then my Messiah, my
Hmm.
prophet, isn't going to be Joan of Arc, a singular saint who's going to be burned at the cross. She's going to become God.
Ah,
So that really was it was always kind of I don't know if it was a super realized plan when I was super young,
hmm.
but maybe there was certain peripheral ideas and like, oh, like even the books now, a friend of mine recommended me this name. I didn't come up with She is Life, like, oh, she is life, so she is death, so she is spirit, so she is God. That's
Hmm.
kind of going to be the arcing series of the She is series. And, you know, and I was just also, as a person, just discovering more and more of myself as a father and,
Right.
you know, a son and a friend and failing miserably at relationships in life and picking yourself back up and so Niobe would have this manifestation and also from the political landscape. um, there are passages in Niobe Shear's death when if you read it a couple of times,
Hmm.
um, is really to speak to the silent people, the people that aren't brave enough to kind of, this is a moment where you have to bring your
Right.
voice to the forefront, and also understanding that I have a limited budget because I'm independent as fuck, limited pages, what's in my head, to Daryl's layouts, to Sheldon, this Jamaican artist,
Hmm.
who I've known for many, many years, lovely guy, great friend, to then put out in Shear's death. How does that translate in the evocative mood of Niobe hunting down sex traffickers
Yeah.
to reflect our own black girls that get abducted around the world?
Hmm.
So that can have a certain place, and and then also wrestling with how many agendas am I trying to also fit in
Hmm.
without it being top plot heavy, and then not losing again the earnest one-on-one connection, the inner monologue that you have, letting that actually feed it as opposed to overtake it. These certain themes. So there's a lot of thinking goes into this stuff, but then also, I'm going to sound again so fucking up my own ass, but what I do is I put on certain music
Okay.
and then let the spirit of the moment and the music kind of start to formulate um, my intention of my emotion, and then let that almost kind of dictate the story, whether it's Stranger's story or Niobe's or Deuce's.
Hmm. Yeah, and through those characters, there's always that sense of looking for mentorship
Mm,
within within a father figure or a mother or a motherly figure within
mm,
the books, and throughout the chaos that may be precluded throughout the whole story,
mm.
there's that sense of just like wanting someone to aid them,
Yeah,
or the either the lack of help or the need of help.
right,
And generally for somebody that young in the storyline,
right.
that's like almost like never ending. I have a child, so I know how much she reaches out for my hand in aid
Mm.
of anything. And then to see it within this book, you're looking at a young girl who's experiencing growth,
Yeah.
physical, emotional, spiritual, all
Mm,
in one.
mm.
So like it's definitely, it stands out within the books.
Thank you. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I get worried, like because you're in the lab and you're like, I haven't a fucking clue if this is translating
Yeah.
or not. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and the fact now you're now within the, I'm seeing if I'm getting this right, because
Mhm.
I have not only the omnibuses, but I have some of the singular comics as well. So we're
Sure.
looking at 6 titles so far.
Yeah, we have six collected titles, and then we've got probably got one on the table lurking around here. So we've got more Komoa. This is currently being in the works right now.
Wow.
This this was in the back of the Niobe Shears Life hardcover. We had 2 issues in that, and
Mm,
so this is, I mean, talking about, look, there's baby Niobe.
yeah,
I mean, that's really
it's
like,
the Simba moment.
yeah, exactly,
Mm,
exactly. And Daryl actually did all the pencils on this. Yeah,
amazing.
like his moment to shine, and we have 6 large issues of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, really knocked, yeah, he really knocked it out. So we have that, and we have the first issue of Assessor as well, which is,
Yes,
you've,
I believe
yes,
I have that as well. Yes.
yeah, that's such a pretty, yeah.
Mhm.
So we have the first issue of Assessor. So we'll work on that storyline. But being in these things take, what I realized on Stranger Comics was the whole goal was always to be the Marvel universe of fantasy.
Mhm.
And but A, obviously I don't have their budget.
Mhm.
Um, but B, that's okay in the sense that if I could make a living, as tough as it is, just making sure that if we only ever put out 1 or 2 books a year, but they're really, really beautiful, and people go, "Oh my God, I want to have that at my coffee table." I feel really proud to be part of the family, and have just an emotional connection. Like
Right.
there's a memory for it. Um, that was my goal, and then the presentation part was, um, I followed 3 business models like I did with my record label. It's like HBO,
Mhm.
Blue Note, and Taschen. So if we could present a look and a feel like Blue Note Records with the quality of Taschen, you know, the being known for story and visual storytelling like HBO,
Right.
that's how I wanted to present Stranger Comics, whether we're doing fantasy or we're doing dick and fart jokes, it's like whatever it was, like ruining Christmas, like whatever it was going to be hopefully just at least a plus and not compromising what you're trying to tell.
Now, was the goal always to see these storylines cinematically?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, yes, but no, in the sense that I didn't ever want to be that company. It's like, all right, we gotta do this comic, so we hope it becomes a movie.
Right.
Because then that, the you have to honor the medium first. That is the comic book medium. That is the most, it's funny. I was having a chat with on an interview the other day, and I heard like there's some speculators and some collectors out who really, really love us, which is thank goodness, because it keeps the bills paid, and
Yeah.
no conventions is a tough gig for an independent that makes their money at conventions.
Yes, it does.
but then some get like, well, when's the show coming? You said, and I'm like, you know, and I heard a rumor that which cracked me up. I went a bit ballistic. I was getting into last year. Like, what do you say to the rumors of people say you're making these comics to um, make money on the speculative? I'm
Mm,
like, yeah, sure. For 30 years, I'm like, you know what? One day I'm gonna risk everything,
right.
create these stories, pay these artists, do like bleed for this shit, so I can make money off of I mean, it was the most absurd shit. And so for me, the story
Mhm.
is the most important thing, and the most important thing is the comic book because that's how it's birthed.
Right.
It is in this medium, and then yes, if I win, you win as a collector. You win, I win as a publisher because I'm able to tell more stories, and the artists that we work with and the stuff we do, whether it's like Fun Tribal Quest stuff, like
Mhm.
representing the culture in the most cool kind of fun way. That's the goal. But then storytelling wise, the way I try and present the stories is cinematic.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of widescreen and a lot more panels that you probably noticed, James, like
Yeah.
in our books that are more widescreen than most comics that do a lot of like circles and this and all sorts of things. I'm a bit boring. I just like it
No,
wide.
because I in between a lot of the books, the hardcovers that I just received, and even in some of the comics, there's those 2-page landscape shots within the panels. That's probably like the most prized possession in the book.
Mm. Yeah, it's just the moment you have to then breathe.
Hmm.
And and I felt like if I was my favorite directors like is Kurosawa, and I grew up on the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns,
Yeah.
and I was like, whoa, the shot they had such an impact on me as a kid cinematically. It's just picking when you're storytelling it's like good hip hop with sampling the best breaks.
Hmm.
That's why to me, the golden era of hip hop is like they mine the best jazz breaks, the best
Yes.
James Brown breaks, and they're choosing these moments and then reinventing the
Hmm.
storytelling. So for me, it's like, yeah, the story's fresh, but in my mind, I'm cherry picking the best panel for the moment that has the most visual impact or the most patience to lead
Hmm.
you up to the next impact. Um, I actually like Daryl loves drawing like combat, and I hate writing it because I find I like the waiting in the wings, like
Right.
the tension, the tension, the tension.
Mhm. Yeah, I can imagine that that's difficult to write a fight scene. There's not much dialogue.
Yeah, it's not even it's literally I don't and there you read the Untamed. There's
Yeah.
a lot of pages I don't write any dialogue, and I try and make sure I let the art speak when it needs to and not over
Hmm.
handed. Like, oh, fuck, you killed my father, I'm gonna punch you again. Whoa, you're weak.
Yeah.
That I
That
love
never
that
happened.
shit for some writers, but for me, I'm not that guy. I guess you know. Um, but um, but yeah, but the panel. So what we try and do is go, okay, if you're we're in a prison setting, like
Mhm.
in Shakespeare's Death, you'll suddenly see the panels are upright, and in certain panels, because I want to start getting claustrophobic and feel like you're stifled in like and symbolically these are bars and bars of the mind and the soul and the physical, and then you can open it back out again, and then combat starts to get a bit more chaotic, and you can
Mm.
start to use some of the landscape.
Right, right.
Yeah, so we even in the Untamed too, we really try to in the first book, we really try to pay real attention to the mood of the scene. Like, oh, the mood of the scene, in addition to the time of day, we want it to be bright. We want it to be fresh. We want to hit it like it's cold and it's just hit you.
Right.
So there's a lot of attention to detail, which is again why we can only put out so many books because we're like, okay, and then in this panel,
Now, as far as like landscapes are concerned, I know a lot of authors tend to like go somewhere. I know you brought up Morocco, where
Mm,
like Stephen King usually brings up Derry, Maine,
mm,
or how George R. R. Martin utilized his outside window living in the Colorado Rockies as
right.
like the landscape for Game of Thrones and everything like that. Was Morocco that place?
Yeah, and I've never been. My old man, when I believe my mum went to, it was just the concept too of the architecture and the feeling of not just the architecture, but just that it's a a reimagined frontier kind of town surrounded by a desert, and
Mm,
then this almost like the town of Oasis, an oasis within a desert.
mhm,
And the true history of Oasis is um, that is, to give you some fun spoilers, that is is that the cradle of civilization? Is that the birth of the world?
mm,
And
okay,
then if that is the birth of the world, so if you reread the Untamed Still a Fool, the new one, and um, and I think Dura says it right. Um, I mean, I can never remember half the shit I write, but it's like she's like, build a well to protect our water and a gate to shield our well. So we're talking about the well in Oasis that you see.
right.
Others will come seeking Oasis, and in this, it's just this,
Hmm.
and yeah, and the kid is like, what is a gate? And she's like, the end.
Right.
Like the beginning of the end of all things. We shouldn't even need gates and borders and these types of things because we are a free people and that's how we're meant to. That's how God intended. The spirits or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And so, if that is Oasis, then the Galamren, the first people, were pushed out by the humans. So it's very, you know, indicative of every kind of like white settler
Hmm.
that goes like, all right, I'm posting up here. All right, you can get out. All right, bet we'll trade with you. All
Right.
right, go and live in the area where there's not fertile ground,
Mhm.
and good luck, but we'll trade with you if we're not slaughtering you, whatever. But so that's Oasis has history upon history upon history when you start to unearth it.
Right.
Um,
Right. Now, to build upon that, the vastness of building this book and creating the different types of tribes,
mm,
um, the landscapes, everything is pretty much vast, especially within epic fantasy books.
yeah.
Like, how does that come about? Do you have to build upon the creation of the world of a Sunday?
I think for me it's like the answer is always whatever is working best for you as a creator. It's not. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I mean, look at Tolkien, the master. He created a language and then created races to speak the language and then
Yeah,
worlds around there.
Dothraki.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I mean, how do you? I mean, fuck. That's congrats. For me, again, I just and it sounds so. It might sound wacky, but for me, it's I listen to music. I
Right.
listen to sounds and I listen to frequency. I sound like this fucking dick, but this is just real.
Mhm.
It is. I believe that the sound of frequency is the thing that moves the earth, the world, and people.
It's true.
And um, and I believe it has literally got the power of spirit in that. So if I listen to certain songs or certain sounds, it's going to do. I'm going to be able to. Who's going to who's going to sing those songs, or who's going to um, fight or fuck or hunt or kill
Mhm.
or cook,
Right.
or what is the ceremony of those sounds, and um, and that starts to inform how certain folks might look or feel in addition to, you know the 1+1, me looking it up on Wikipedia or Google or whatever, or old books or old stories, and things that you've seen and heard, and then Daryl being an anthropology major, making sure that these do have checks and balances, and
Hmm.
they make sense.
Right.
But then on top of that, I think inherently what we've managed to do is create something that feels familiar, but there's an originality that oh, I feel like I've experienced this before, but I've never seen it before.
Right.
And that's taken some time to get there.
Mm.
And so that's from a cultural, a spirit of intent for how people can look and talk and walk and fuck and whatever, and eat. How do you break bread? How do you congregate? How do you, um, uh, what ceremonies of what, and this is what is important to you
Hmm.
as a tribe of people.
Right.
Like, you know, when I went to Thailand once, it was like the most important thing to do is smile. I was like, oh, they got that shit figured out. Other people, most important thing to do is conquer or make
Yeah.
money, right? What is the philosophy? And then who is really winning?
Yeah.
And if I can say like, oh, we're better because we're American and we conquer, like, okay, that might be for one American's perspective, but for a person who is not of that culture, like, where you're losing to what we value as the best thing, which
Exactly.
is happiness or
Hmm.
laughter, just the concept of laughter,
Because it's contagious.
because it's contagious, and that's what makes them tick,
Hmm.
right? So and I think too, and not to go too off topic, but then it's like, well, I need to own that laughter.
Hmm.
So now let me,
You want
um,
to put it in a jar.
exactly, let me subjugate it. Yeah, let me let me put it in a cage, and then here's my bird in a cage. Look, it laughs. I don't know how it laughs. I must own it. I must own this spirit of movement and power and beauty, whether it's you know um, whether it's jazz music or whether it's an orchid, how to cultivate orchid flowers or cherry blossoms or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever is important. Like, oh, I must have that because I must own and dominate, you know. So we play with all these types of themes in addition to, okay, so The Untamed is the story of a man who wants a second chance to be a better father, and that's really a reflection of me,
Yeah.
and right, and shit that I've done wrong, and what could I do to be better? And I listened to a lot of Aaron Copland and Gorecki
Mhm.
and certain classical sounds that were really like, oh, okay, this just is I'm gonna gut kick you in the soul as much as possible, and you're gonna
Right.
cut off every scab and be as vulnerable as possible. And writing The Untamed sucks because it's always a how can I be as vulnerable as possible and unearth as much of my own sin
Hmm.
as possible, and how would I find redemption? And is this little girl, is it too much of this little girl?
Hmm.
I'm asking too much of this girl. I'm
Right.
asking way too much of Niobe to heal me. Like, who's the teacher,
Hmm. It's funny you brought up around about music. I remember a story. Well, my story is my mother used to always play music when she was watering the plants because
Mm,
she felt it would make them grow faster.
yeah, oh yeah,
And she always told me it would,
yeah,
and I always in the beginning, of course, I thought she was crazy
right,
until I got my own plants and I
yeah,
started doing it
oh
and
yeah,
come to find out that it was real.
oh
And
yeah,
it's a vibration,
yeah,
where living things feel it
yeah.
regardless of how it's working around. Now, to get back to this story, do you feel as though if when this does get built cinematically, will you
Mhm.
want to be a part of the musical process, the compositions?
Yeah, definitely, without question. Well, um, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
I'm probably not allowed to say anything. Right now, I know all I can say is we're in development because I
Yes.
was like, "Where are you at?" We're in development. That's all I
We're in
can say.
development. Development
Yeah,
is development.
development's development, and it's a much slower process than I realized. But I'm blessed, so that's it. But yes, absolutely. And we even I even tried to write and produce a couple of songs that would reflect the sound of with a friend of mine that would reflect kind of the intention. And she was brilliant. She'd always teach me and say, certain tribes, they're not, the concept of music or sound
Mm-hmm.
or statues. You probably know this shit better than me. Is literally, it's like everything is a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It's ceremonial. It's not like it's a ceremony of what. So if then we could take the ceremony of certain types of sounds that felt like really rooted,
Mm-hmm.
um, then it would hit, yeah, and give it a lot of weight and gravitas.
Right.
You know, because I'm I'd probably get hated for saying this shit, but I'm I'm such an old head when it comes to music
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not a like straight up from me. As soon as I hear auto tune, it makes my fucking sphincter tighten a little bit. I can't I can't hack it.
You're not the only one.
Okay, it just and the celebration of like, okay, so you go, if you look historically of the movement of sound and what has uplifted the disenfranchised and especially black folks, you can go, okay, well, you jazz, sure, rock and roll,
Old Negro spirituals.
old Negro spirituals, um, and folks being allowed to sing in the church as the only way to kind of communicate, and then that's being owned, and then then here, and then that's being owned, and then this, and then that's being owned, and so on.
Yeah.
And when I look at today's sounds, and I think it's what is being celebrated and why is it being celebrated?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have the patience or the care or the knowledge to have the patience and the care while we're being bombarded with all this extra sensory shit like
Right.
apps like, oh, how late am I edges, what is the focus of the day? The focus of the day is this, you know
Yeah.
and if you spend 3 hours in that, then you're kind of like sucked in, and we are, as people, we want to feel part of a tribe. So hey, this is hot right now. If you are not in it, you don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it's like this shit is bad for your health.
Mm-hmm.
Like just I think it's, and I'm gonna sound like a crazy person, but I believe that if you can look at the last 100 years, to me, Black American music is to me the most powerful thing in the universe. Um, it has moved people.
I'm not gonna say you're lying.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just, yes, I definitely believe it so wholeheartedly
Yeah.
that if you can say, okay, I can fuck with this. I can shit. This is frightening.
Mm-hmm.
This is a scary thing. How can I put lipstick on it? How can I?
Yeah.
Say lipstick's bad, but how can I steer it this way? How can I push it this way? How can I?
Yeah.
Um, Let me break down the sound into something that's incoherent, something that sounds like you're whining like a 5-year-old, and now you're, is that taking away from masculinity? But what is masculinity, and is
Yeah.
masculinity bad? Are we now getting on the subject of like people saying like, well, masculinity is a bad thing? How about it, it's not pie, and masculinity can be good, and so can
Yeah.
femininity, so can non-binary, and all these things can coexist. But we're so distracted by the guff and the fluff
Mm-hmm.
that I think we're missing real spiritual warfare and a real agenda. And Yeah, that's why I do, you know, it's probably the most revealing shit I've said on an interview, but literally for me, it's like, that's why I do
Mhm.
that's why I do Niobe like this.
Right.
And I've seen enough shit, bro, to be running a record label. I've seen, and look, I'm a Wu-Tang head. I'm a fucking, you know, like a hardcore head, right? Yeah,
Same.
I mean, to me, that's a true reflection of, um, that's true artistic reflection of what somebody is conveying in their spirit. It doesn't have to be. I'm the anti fake R&B shit. I
Hmm.
mean, because I just don't buy it. I'm like, if I'm going to put on R&B, I'm probably going to put on Otis Redding or Al
Hmm.
Green or Nina or Etta James. You know, Donny Hathaway. I can't fuck with someone that's. Otherwise, I might as well watch a musical
Hmm.
because it's a show,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that either. But
No,
nothing wrong with that. A show is a show, and that's great and fine. But I think it's this.
there's parallels to it.
There's parallels to it, and is this affecting your soul? Is this really soul music and
Right.
soul, right?
Uh-huh.
And so yeah. See, that's what happens. Like I on a fucking tangent.
It's quite all right
We
because
were probably talking about remote controls instead of talking about aliens or some shit.
no, because I always think of when certain things get consumed so much by people, and therefore the engine starts going to where it's built into mass production.
Yeah,
Everything turns into fast food, you know.
yeah,
So
mm-hmm.
music, same thing. Everybody wants music.
Yeah,
Everybody wants music to be released as quickly as possible by
yeah,
their favorite artist,
right,
week after week after week.
right.
So the game started to change, and it messed up the whole methodology.
Yeah.
There was a point in time where artists wouldn't release things for 3 to 4 years
Sure,
because they
sure,
actually took their time within the studio to put things out.
sure.
But now in the age of streaming, it's like, no, we got to have it now. Like push it out as much as possible. And all your old catalogs, yeah, we got to put that out too. And, it's not necessarily the person going out and grabbing it. It's all fast food now. I
And,
hope I hope the comic industry never turns into that, even though slightly it has. But
it's
mass production is a problem.
it's a popularity. This kid was telling me the other day. She's like, "Yeah, I know it sucks. The music crap, but I don't care. So and so put it out. It's not even about the music. It's a popularity contest."
That's it.
And I was like, "Whoa, that's some deep shit. It is a popularity contest, and the trouble is when we have social media and let's say Instagram, you know, like you and I aren't friends on Instagram.
Hmm.
You are my follower or I
Hmm.
am your follower, right? So
Right.
you have all these little kind of subliminal shit like, oh, so if I'm a follower of celebrity insert X, I feel like I have access to them and
Hmm.
I now must follow what they do and say.
Yeah.
So these social media influencers are giants because they can change the course of X, Y, and Z. And then, but they're also kind of under the microscope that we're forgetting the mystery of, let's say, the
Right.
Beatles and the Stones or whatever. Like, oh, there's a mystery behind them
Hmm.
back then because they can't be touched. You know, now we feel like, oh, we can build them up, we can tear them down, and I think that also breeds a
That's
ton of
what it is.
insanity.
Yeah, they used to tell you to chew you up and spit you out. That's what type of business this is,
Yeah,
and it's true.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It,
Well, to continue, um, there's this storyline that you basically just put out on Kickstarter
oh
that
yeah,
that I thought was intriguing. Very intriguing because I actually I'm a backer.
thank you. I appreciate
Because
it.
out of the whole concept of elves, fairies, fables, you decide to make out of Stranger Comics a Christmas story about some very, very, very naughty elves.
Right. Yeah, it's the other side of me, right? So, you know, you can be like, oh, so deep
Good.
and serious and
That's
whatever. And I'm
good.
like, how do we have to laugh at myself, have a fucking giggle? You know,
Right.
it's this strange conflict where you go, good Lord, you take yourself so goddamn seriously, you know, and and so ruining Christmas was actually we've been nurturing that shit for over 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. So Daryl and I, okay, he remembers it differently. But I remember it that we're at a Starbucks.
Okay.
And I'm like, look at these entitled motherfuckers. You were there. They're like, oh, I'm so, you know, and I was so irritated with that shit. And so it was, the whole concept is really, and the two characters were kind of modeled after both of our best friends passed away, and they were very bigger than life personalities.
Okay.
And Lee, my friend, he worked in the record business. He was like a hip hop MC from the 70s with Battle
Mm.
Nelly Mel, like stories, you know.
Okay.
And and, and the concept for ruining Christmas was the sense of entitlement that kids have now,
Right.
and the apathy that the parents have for their entire, like, mom, I said a Sony PlayStation, not an Xbox. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, okay, I'll get you another one. You know, like, all right, you bet. You know, that shit. You know, and then that entitlement that we see, which is also contagious, and then pettiness, which is like, oh, I'm just being petty. Well, fucking don't be. Like, oh, do you know what I mean? I don't get it. Like,
Right.
you know, like, oh yeah, I just ghosted him. Well, then you are a ghost, and then you're fucking dead to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, this. I think all these things of entitlement, and apathy, and all that kind of shit, then leads to myopic cowardice and create whatever the fuck. Anyway, long story, fuck all that. Ruining Christmas is about two Christmas elves. They
Uh-huh.
get the shit beaten out of them by the rottenest kid in all the land, and they lose Santa's hat, the source of all Christmas magic.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go on a buddy mission to get it back.
Right.
Um, so, okay, I'm going to show you something, right? So here is a little preview comic that we did back in 2016, 17.
Right. Right.
A little bit naughty. But in 1896, December 25th, this little kid comes running down the steps, Christmas time, to, you know, get this stuff. And he pulls out a lump of coal.
Right.
He's really disappointed. So you can see he kind of sniffles, wipes his nose,
Mm-hmm.
and then drops the coal. All right, so there's Hitler. Hitler was the last kid to ever get a lump of coal.
Oh man.
And FDR and Churchill, they go to Santa and they go, you got to knock that shit off. So we enter the nuclear age, and Santa puts his elves to work. We invent cheer gas.
Mm-hmm.
And cheer gas is for Christmas elves. Every Christmas, they go up and they blast most kids in the face with cheer gas to power up the love meter.
Mm.
And now they've got addicted to the cheer gas and kind of immune to it. And Santa, now that the spirit of giving
Uh-huh.
has been taken it
Right.
up, like with a 10-inch Yule log, right? So the spirit of giving is taking it.
Yep.
That's where we're at. So we enter economic depression because Gimel and Coos, our heroes, they're the naughty list coordinators, and they miss this kid, little Joey Canuggins.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go mace him in the face, pair him up, but he beats them up, and all hell breaks loose. Because Santa, the way we found a factor is like Santa is like, yeah, it's a saint.
Yeah.
Right. So saints, angels, prophets, gods, we worship them.
Mm-hmm.
Santa's no longer being worshipped because we're done with the spirit of giving. We
Right.
don't do anymore. It's all about us. It's all about selfies.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me. So Santa doesn't give a fuck about us. So he's become a meth addict, trailer trash, just an absolute waster. While, you know, and the Red Rogue, this beautiful sister, she's basically the first elf to ever quit at the factory, and she's become this kind of like Kitty Pryde. She can phase in and out of snow. She's the only one just about keeping Christmas going. She stole his belt so she can get into chimneys, dole out the fucking presents, get back, make sure everything's good, while Santa's becoming more and more of a complete mess. So we've got layers to the story of like, it's big, irreverent.
So this is not a one-off at all.
No, it's big. It's a big, like, I don't know if you saw it. Let me grab this. This is how absurd this stuff is. Okay, so we have Frosty the Snowman.
Mm-hmm.
Frosty the Snowman is like Willy Wonka at the pole,
Okay.
and he's basically the guy in charge of the merchandise. You know, hey kids, it's Frosty. You know, but really he's a prohibition gangster. And if you smoke a Frosty's bong, you might invoke the spirit of the real Frosty. Like, don't, you know, like Candyman, don't look in the mirror. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that
Don't
kind
say
of
his
thing.
name.
Exact. Don't say his name. But he creates these wonderful merch items
Oh my god.
like you never forget your first kiss. You know,
uh,
Frosty's frostbite condoms. You know, we're very much in the face mask with the mistletoe for the grind, not the kiss, but the
right.
grind. So we're very health conscious at Stranger Comics. We're here to protect your. We're here to protect you.
It's true.
And then we've got his rival is this little black gnome called Big Love, and he's like the Slugworth to the Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
So they're in like they have
The rival company.
the rival company, the rival gang, the Snowmen and the Gnomes. You know, it's and then the elves, they're like slave labor, and after the day at the factory, they're one day off is Christmas Day. Every night they go to local strip joint, elves, elves, elves. It's that's how big. So my goal is to be
Mm-hmm.
bring you in with the irreverence and the absurdity, and then like you know how kids are, they're so like, I'm so irreverent, don't talk to me, I'm so irreverent because I'm so irreverent,
Right.
and then wake wake the fuck up,
Right.
and then hit them with the, yeah, you know, you're wasting the world, you know. And so it's really there's there's a lot of layers within the story.
Oh my god. Now I can't wait.
Yeah, it's,
And I believe the book gets delivered in March.
it's in March, yeah.
Yeah, so I, to look at a concept like Christmas, and I know everybody pretty much has taken a concept of Christmas, turned it into comedies, turned
Sure,
it into, of course, dramatic
sure.
romance built driven movies like Lifetime movies and
Yeah.
Hallmark movies and everything like
Hallmark movie. Oh yeah.
that. You know, I even remember like Bad Santa, so it was like slapstick at one point.
Yeah.
So, but to take the concept of Santa himself and then revert that, that's brilliant.
Thanks, man. We so that Darren and I he wrote this draft, and he had a lot of, it had a lot of heart. It had a lot of, there's a lot of cleverness to it, a
Mhm.
lot of deep heart. And but I can't remember if it was him. He'll say it was his idea, but it probably wasn't. But I was like, let's write this as a if Guy Ritchie was doing this like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch,
Right.
how can we make this as British as possible? And British comedians are they get away with a lot more than American comedians do. Like it's still catching up. You know,
Benny
there's
Benny Hill.
Benny. Do you know my Benny Hill was
Benny
filmed?
Hill.
Benny, Benny Hill used to phone my mum and would always try and get her in his shows.
Really?
Yeah, my mum was in England. She was one of England's most famous models back in the days,
Wow.
and she was a James Bond girl. Yeah, 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 a lot of funny stories. So there's a Benny Hill. But if you see any of did you ever watch the Guy Ritchie movies like Snatch or Lock, Stock? Okay,
Snatch is one of my favorite movies.
okay. So imagine that, or Rock and Roller. It's like he's a fucking snowflake. I wouldn't trust him to shovel
Yeah.
reindeer shit. That's how
Uh-huh.
I've written. Ruining Christmas. You know, he's like Santa Claus. What a bastard! He's got me freezing my chestnuts off. It's very. It,
Right. Because oftentimes in those movies, you often see like the characters turn into the narrator all of a
yeah,
sudden, like out of
right.
nowhere. They're
Right.
facing the camera and they're telling you the story, like, but you could tell by the other end of the lens that they're talking to somebody else, but no, they're talking to you.
Yeah, yeah. I absolutely love those movies. When I was acting back in the days. I did a commercial with the director of photography from Lock, Stock, and Snatch, and I only booked the gig because I was really crazy in the auditions, and I got to twirl this girl into like a wedding cake and all sorts of absurd stuff. Um, but yeah. So anyway, ruining Christmas. If you like those kind of British, that kind of British comedy.
Mm-hmm.
and you want to see representation. But, because we do representation always,
Mm-hmm.
but the story has a lot of layers. And I tell you what, mate, like I know it's offended already. There's a lady that follows me on Instagram,
Yeah.
and she posted something. She's like, I can tell on my personal page, she goes, I can tell you're buying followers. I would never follow a man like you. And
Like, why?
I was like, but this is a private account.
Right.
So how would I buy followers on my personal private account? Um, and I don't even, of course, I don't believe in that shit. So, but I was like, that's hilarious. You followed me. You requested to follow me because I have a private account. Yeah. But yes, I've lost a few. Because I think comedy is such a touchy subject now.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, a lot of stand-up comedians and everything don't feel as though that the material or the lengths that they can go to with their material
Yeah.
can be properly absorbed within the crowd. You
Yeah.
know?
Someone's going to be triggered no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah. It's the whole cancel culture thing. You're not
Yeah.
allowed to speak your mind anymore.
Yeah, it's great, which I think is dangerous because it doesn't offer discourse.
Right.
It doesn't offer conversation, and if something does rub you the wrong way, then it's potentially a good conversation to be had. But then, I always kind of go a bit back and forth because I might be like, well, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it is good that these jokes aren't out there. Who the fuck am I? And
Right.
um,
Yeah.
but
You go
yeah,
back and forth with it.
I I do, yeah, big time. How do you feel with that?
I'm kind of the same way because
Yeah,
I enjoy conversation and decorum, whether I agree or disagree with the topic.
right.
You know, as long as we get to talk it out and have a civilized conversation rather than something that's a little bit more volatile.
Right,
It works out in the end because at the end of the day, I'm going to understand your standpoint because if we keep talking,
right,
we're gonna get deeper and deeper into it
right,
to the point where sooner or later we're gonna start pointing at ourselves.
right. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
You know,
I feel like if you can't ever get to a place where you can laugh at yourself, you're
hmm
fucked.
yeah,
You're absolutely fucked.
yeah,
And that's why I love Chappelle. I love Bill Burr.
oh yeah,
I find myself watching all the reaction videos to, even though I've seen all the Bill Burr clips, like watching people's reaction
yeah.
videos to Bill Burr.
That or new people that have just gotten
Yeah.
into them. Yeah, like them,
Yeah.
Patrice O'Neill and all those type of.
Oh gosh, amazing. And it's such a relief. And I think it's like it's like, well, you know, your mama jokes. Oh my goodness, you've affected me because my
Yeah,
mother, blah blah blah. It's just the same shit.
yeah.
So you're just
In high school, we called it the dozens. We did Yo Mama jokes for about an hour straight through lunch, and then everybody went their separate ways.
right,
Everybody laughed
right.
and went to class right
How can you
afterwards.
not? It's crazy.
Mhm.
How can you not? It's I love those roasts
Yeah,
back, with the one dude that died.
Dean Martin, the Dean Martin roast.
The Demon, they were amazing too,
Martin,
but
yes.
the Jeffrey Ross and the other guy that passed away not that long ago. The more kind of like 10 years ago roasts when they roast Flavor Flav, they roasted
Oh,
Trump.
yes, yes, yes.
Oh my
That was on,
goodness.
yeah, on
Oh,
VH1.
I freaking love that shit, and so many of them taken down, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh my god, they
Yeah,
were they were hilarious.
they are.
I love that shit. But when I was doing ruining, I had to look at all the jokes that we had made back 10, 12 years ago and look at the characters too to
Mhm.
be like, oh, okay, I got to take another pass at this because even though some of them are very outlandish, and I understand some folks can be like, yeah, just fuck you based on principle. There are some that I'm like, okay, no, I've also evolved, and maybe this is too potentially
Right.
offensive or whatever. And because I've had folks go like, so wait, does that mean you're not doing Niobe anymore because you're doing this? And I go, dude, I'm a publisher. I like ice
Yeah,
cream and I like sandwiches.
yeah.
You know, I can't like
I
two different.
enjoy cotton candy and olives.
Right,
Two different
exactly.
things.
Right, I like sandwiches and I like sex. Like it could be completely different. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
a three-dimensional person.
Mhm.
Um,
There are
but
other angles to my personality.
and surely like you know, like, but I think what happens too is, you know, you experience this. Obviously, you're a super rounded dude. Is people want to be able to put you in a box so they can feel better about themselves
Of
and
course.
where they're at in their on their at times most of us live linear journeys, you
Hmm.
know, arguing over who bought toothpaste,
Yeah.
who's got the kid for the weekend, you
Mm.
know, how can we pay this bill, do I have a job,
Yeah.
this, so
Generally, the first people that try to put you in a box are your parents.
oh yeah for
Yeah.
sure.
They're like, I
Yeah,
want to mold you into this person. They're like,
yes.
I'm nowhere near that guy.
my, my mum read my very first script, which was dog shit,
Okay.
and she was like, this is terrible. And she um, she and it was on like it was on a Word document. I
Hmm.
don't know what the hell I was doing. But a producer read it and he's like, yeah, this is all over the place. But you're a diamond in the rough. The story is amazing. It's totally unproducible. It was over 300 pages long. I didn't know you shouldn't write more than 100 pages or whatever.
Right.
20. It was 301 per page. Like this is bigger than Ben Hur. This is not. What are you thinking? But but there's a really interesting. This is a great story here, but it's just too big. And then literally, I okay. The journey of the Untamed was I was rocking my newborn to sleep,
Mm.
and I was overtired, hadn't slept. My son's mom, who I love dearly, but we're not together anymore. But we were having a difficult time,
Hmm.
and I was rocking, and it was the worst time of my life, I think, to be honest. And I saw these demon patterns on the wall,
Like shadows.
like shadows, and they were probably just filtering light through the curtains, and it looked like they were laughing at me, and I was just delirious from lack of sleep.
Hmm.
Her mother was dying of cancer. It was just all hitting, all of this life, death, everything. I'd been bad, and I was always a very good person, and everything was just I lost it.
Hmm.
And I wrote down with a pencil and a piece of paper, I'm a bad man. Day one, I'll come to town to bathe this town in blood, blah, 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 blah. Day two, I'll do this and the other. I meet a girl, she'll maybe can give me my soul back. Day three.
Wow.
Yeah, just no shit. So after 10 minutes of just this vomit on paper, I read it and go, well, this would make a good fucking story. You know? And I go,
turns
well,
out
this is like a
turned out
spaghetti.
to be.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And I was like, well, it's like a spaghetti western. Oh, 7 issues, 7 days, 7 souls, 7 issues.
Hmm.
I read the shit out in an outline and I sent it to the producer and he's like, that's fucking genius.
Hmm.
Spaghetti western with a fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was the Untamed. That's how it began. And then I wrote the script in a week. It just came
Oh,
out.
in a week.
Yeah, the first draft. I mean, there's been shitloads of drafts since, but the first draft with essentially the essence of what you read in that first book. Yeah,
Hmm.
it just was just there. I don't think I'll ever recreate that, you know. But yeah,
Well, Seb, I appreciate you doing this.
yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a rambler. I told you I'm all over the place.
Look, you can feel free to ramble at any time. I have you on. So this is brilliant. So absolutely, we're going to get ruining Christmas come March.
Yep.
What do we expect more from Stranger Comments coming soon?
Okay, so first off, come to the live on Thursday. I got a
Okay.
Stranger Comics Instagram. It's the last end of the year con blowout.
Right.
all sort of discounts, a couple of guests. It should be batshit crazy. New swords, new this, new that. Next year we're going to have ruining ruining Christmas Kickstarter at the end of the year. Another one,
Yep.
maybe some other things too. But we have a new Niobe and Dura comic that we're
Mm,
developing on right now, and then we'll probably have another comic um, with Eli working on a young Dusu book
mm.
and an origin of powers type story. And so we'll have more Niobe, more Dusu, more Asunda next year.
And a lot of things that you can't tell us about.
And yeah, and a lot of shit I can't say a word about. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Right. So how, if people wanted to get in contact with Stranger Comics and wanted to research your books, how could they do so?
Just look up at Stranger Comics on any social media, or go
Mhm.
to strangercomics.com.
Perfect, man.
Easy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for doing this, man. Thank you
Thanks for
so
having me. Yeah, I appreciate it, bro. Yeah, you're the best, man. Thanks for having me.
absolutely. And Facts Project, we are out.